Hey, what's up?
So, hello, hi.
Hi, Vaush.
Sorry,
Hey,
I was in the
Vaush.
phantom zone for a second.
Neighborhood.
Guys,
Ouch.
it took me a second. I had myself deafened. How are we doing?
Doing all right.
Nice.
Yeah, we've been in full swing for a few hours now, trying to get out the word for folks to come and volunteer to canvass and phone bank, because the election day is April 4th, and that's coming up. And you can canvass and phone bank regardless of where you are in the world. Although
Phone banking.
if-
You're telling me it's actually possible to do political good from your phone. Can you fill me in on that? What's going on with that?
Well, it all started with the man named Alexander Graham. Okay, and
Oh my.
uh,
We're
No,
going way
you-
back.
yeah, you can call basically from wherever you are in the world. You can sign up to volunteer to phone bank, and you can do it. I believe, Prime, you've done it before. You can do it from the comfort of your own home. You don't have to go anywhere. You can put on your gamer headset and
I've done it.
start calling
It's
people.
very user friendly. It's very fun. It's very easy.
Yeah.
It's all
I mean-
automated. Like a machine does the whole thing. You're just watching a program. Like dial a number. You talk to someone. Whenever they hang up, dials the next number until you talk to the next person.
Exactly. So,
you don't even have to wear pants to do it. If that's a deal
Nope.
breaker for you, you can just kick back and yeah.
Chat?
Yeah, but go ahead.
Chat?
Yeah, so like,
Oh, I'm just making sure they know.
okay, yeah. I was just gonna say that yes, it's I've done it before, and Lance as well. It's super easy, right? It sounds more intimidating. Like I know I was a bit more intimidated before I did it, but then it's an automated program. You don't have to use your own phone. That's another thing we need to let people know, right? Because you might think, well, phone banking, I'm going to use my own phone. I use my minutes or whatever, right? None of that.
Nope.
Instead, you could just log into like a website, browser, and if you got like a mic, if you got headphones, right? Or some of them might be able to like use. Might be able to do it from your phone, but not use your phone minutes. In any case, right? Like you have a system in front of you that gives you a script, tells you like what to say initially, right, to get the party started, and it depends on which system you're using. But the system I had previously used, it went down like a branching path, right? So first, like, did they hang up on you immediately? No? Okay. Click yes or no. If they are talking, is it the right person? Because, you're going off the phone list, might be the wrong person. So if it's the correct person, okay, right? It keeps going off from there, right? Like, did they want more information about the election? So you enter that information, just click as you're saying the script. But then, of course, you get a chance to have like a human interaction with someone. So you get to just talk to them.
Branching path. So what you're telling me is this is a lot like the hit game series Dark Souls.
Yes, indeed. Yes, and it all
Dialogue
wraps back
trees.
around eventually. Yeah.
Vaush, aren't you a Dark Souls streamer? That's what you do predominantly, right?
That's
You're
my main.
Just now.
Yeah, this is my. I'm hearing about this politics thing today. It sounds really cool though. This canvassing business.
Yes.
I really hope my
You
chat
should
gets involved.
consider like talking about politics more and maybe not Dark Souls. You know what I mean? Maybe.
Maybe. I mean, we could start kind of bridging with analogies. Like what we're doing right now, kind of, is sort of like we're linking the flame, by preventing the Republicans from getting a Supreme Court majority. It'd be quite bad if that happened.
Yeah, it's like real life Dark Souls.
Yeah, I know that Dark Souls is supposed to be a hard game, but you know what the real Dark Souls is? Politics.
I thought you were gonna say humanity.
I'm not a Dark Soul. I'm not a gamer. Period. I've never actually played Dark Souls, but like just the snippets
You
that
can't
I've
say that on
seen.
Twitch. You'll get roasted.
I feel
Just
like
fake it. Fake it
it's
till you
true.
make
It's
it.
true. Listen,
Oh,
I no cap. I've never played it, but I feel like Mitch McConnell, the Senate's resident Eldritch abomination, would fit very well in the Dark Souls mythos.
I think he was actually under all of that armor for Executioner Smough.
Judge
back in the day.
Judge Janet
It's one of
is
the
the player
pilgrims.
character. She's going to use her summoning bell, right, to call in you for help, to assist her in taking down the boss, being David Kelly. David Kelly?
Daniel Kelly.
Daniel Kelly. No, David Kelly is the producer. Daniel Kelly, excuse me.
Boston Legal. Are you a Boston Legal fan? David E.
I
Kelly.
am actually. I love it. Oh my god. I'm sorry. We'll
Phenomenal
talk
show.
about that later. That's amazing. But, but I wanted to talk more on, unless Vaush wanted to jump in and say things.
Yeah, Vaush, did you introduce yourself, or did you just come in and said hi?
Yeah, I'm Vaush. I'm a prominent Dark Souls Bloodborne streamer. First person to beat Bloodborne, actually, NA.
It's true.
The Koreans got me by about 6 seconds, but
Blindfolded
yeah.
too.
Oh yeah. Oh well, obviously it doesn't count otherwise.
He only plays blindfolded. It's pretty wild. I've seen it.
It's I'm hearing about this politics thing. It's pretty cool. It turns out that by sheer coincidence, there are many people in my community who've actually canvassed before with Progressive Victory, and I have heard near ubiquitously. I say near ubiquitously because it's kind of a common turn of phrase. What I actually mean is ubiquitously positive experiences in terms of getting to meet new people, have a good time, feel like you're making a difference. It turns out that if you're a politics streamer or like me, a Dark Souls streamer, engaging with this stuff online is kind of a way of engagement. But if you're just watching that 24/7, I feel like if you're not doing anything with all those feelings you have about the direction the country's going, I can imagine it might be kind of a bit of a downer at times. So I highly encourage people who are watching to give the canvassing bit a shot. It's not as scary as they think. I've heard people with severe social anxiety in my community went out and still managed to have a good time because obviously, Progressive Victory is dedicated to making this experience as accessible as possible, because that brings more people out. And if you like going, you'll go again. And there are lots of folks who have gone again. So it's all good, and it's a worthwhile cause. Not even to speak of it being fun. It's also good to do, like on a moral level.
Yeah, if you like democracy and civil rights and such, you probably should get involved.
Yeah, I did some canvassing during the special election for Doug Jones in Alabama a couple years back. I had a great time. Like, it was pretty scary at first, but it was fine. Most of it was just informing people, hey, there's a special election coming up. Do you know where you can vote? And they're like, no. It's like, okay, this is the voting district you're in. Here's where you go. Do you need a ride? We can arrange that for you. And it wasn't bad. And especially in a time with like my community is a bunch of trans people, largely. And as you've probably heard inklings of, we're kind of a political scapegoat right now, just a little. And hearing about that all the time and not doing anything about it, it sucks. It's overwhelming. It's hard to deal with. And just if you just can't sit there and be focused on it. Sometimes you got to disconnect. Sometimes you just got to get out there and do something. You got a phone bank. You got a canvas. If you feel like you're doing something, you're not standing still, and that's important.
Well, yeah, Vaush brought up that it's not just for extroverts either, because again, in Milwaukee, I guarantee you, I didn't go around and poll the audience, but I guarantee you, if you asked most of the people who were actually canvassing, most of them would describe themselves as introverts. And I know several of them were like, I never imagine that not only would I be phone banking, I would actually be, knocking on doors, putting my face in front of other people. And they liked it. It was thrilling for them. It felt like, at least according to them, that it encouraged them to get out of their shells in a way that they might not otherwise if there wasn't something like this motivating them. If it was just like, go out with friends or go bar hopping or whatever, then I'll probably just stay home. But something like this motivating them, a lot of these people are introverts and they enjoyed themselves.
Well, and I know a lot of the people in a lot of the communities that are here are trans or have loved ones who are just generally trans allies. And there's a lot of that riding on the line for the state of Wisconsin for this particular election. Because Wisconsin is only really held back from being a full-blown anti-LGBTQ sundown town, but as a state, and it's scary. Earlier this year, the Republicans in the state essentially voted to legalize conversion therapy of trans people. There was a ban that was in place since 2020, and Republicans overturned that because they have the majority of the state legislature. And the only way that is going to change is by making sure that the gerrymandering in Wisconsin gets overturned. And the only way that happens is if Judge Janet wins the swing seat on the state Supreme Court. This election is literally the key to unfucking the entire state of Wisconsin. If I can be blunt about it.
It was a single election when it got fucked, right? I'm thinking about this, like the history of Wisconsin, like when Scott Walker got in. I'm not sure if that was the same election or a different election when it was 2010 when that happened, because that was like a census year, right? And it turned it over to Republicans. Republicans took that state house, and then they gerrymandered, and the effect has been devastating, like ever since. So, like one state, one local election or state election can have massive effects, right? Like people, there were a certain number of people, Democrats within that state, who on that year decided, I'm going to stay home. Right? And they've been dealing with the consequences of that ever since. And a great way of getting people to show up is by canvassing, is by getting involved. It is the most effective way. We were talking about this earlier, that there are a number of ways that get to get people involved within an election. Like the one is ads, right? People understand ads, but like that is less motivating, except maybe in the negative sense, voting against someone. But having that actual human contact with someone in terms of phone banking and then canvassing, right? Canvassing being number one, that turns people up. It drives traffic towards the election campaign. And I wanted to say one more thing. I was saying this to like Lance previously, talking about that election in New York. Because I went and found that in New York there was a election for DA, right? Tiffany Caban, she ended up losing. I believe she was the progressive candidate. She lost to her opponent, Melinda Katz, and she lost by 60 votes. 60 votes. I looked up the this is for a Queens DA. Yeah, I looked up the population. 2.7 million people within that borough. There were 61 votes there. Votes there.
A couple times over.
Exactly. If she had had more resources and a better ground game, she could have gotten those votes.
Yep.
There were people who just weren't aware or weren't motivated, but that could have changed with a ground game. And you can be a part of that for this election, which is indeed very important.
And just to connect with that, when you do a phone banking session, how many people do you generally talk to? Like just one?
So
how many?
You can sign up for different periods in time. So you can sign up, say, I want to do it for 1 hour, 2 hours. And in that time, you may have a really good session where you just roll through a bunch. And you might find one where you get stuck in a conversation where you're talking to someone. And it's like this, delightful old grandma who wants to give you her special ketchup recipe. She's like, oh, you're going to love the taste. It's got prunes. And like, you got to be nice. You got to, don't like, a vote is a vote, and be very nice and respect your elders. And people should be nicer to older people in general. So that's all good and base. But I'm just saying generally, in terms of how many people you'll get through, it varies. It varies. But what shocked me was that even people who I would have phone calls with, where they're like clearly politically opposed to me, like ideologically we could not be further away, they were still mostly friendly. They were still mostly like, I'm sorry, son, I'm a conservative, and that's just who I am. But I appreciate you trying to help out democracy. I'm like, oh, okay, well that was nice. I would have expected, like, my experiences on Twitch and talking to other streamers and stuff, so I expected it was going to be a little bit more rough. It's lovely. It's fun.
Yeah.
It's good. Yeah, you'll have a great time.
Well, generally, first of all, that was delightful, and I want grandmas to give me their ketchup recipe because I'm sure it's better than whatever ketchup I'm eating. But second of all, like, it is completely plausible that between now and April 4th, if you were to volunteer your time to phone bank, you could talk to far more than just 60 people. And if you're changing the minds of any one person, you're also statistically likely changing the minds of people in that household as well, regarding whether they're going to go vote, and possibly even changing like their spouse's mind, on who they're going to vote for. So when we're talking about the margins, and keep in mind, Wisconsin is a very thin margin state. Like, you alone volunteering could help to make the difference, whether that is as a canvasser or as a phone banker. So we're really, really encouraging people to get out there. And again, the canvassing date is on April 2nd. So if you can make it out to Wisconsin on April 2nd,
What will be the link?
canvass on the ground.
Would there be a link possibly to learn more information about canvassing? I don't know.
Wow, indeed. You can use !canvas in chat to get a link for that. And if you are interested in phone banking, you can use !phone bank to learn more about that and volunteer.
You know, I think that a definite advantage we have, or maybe a sort of change in things, is that, you know, if you took in every state a total proportion of people who vote which way every year and didn't vote was a candidate, they would win in every state. And that's because we have a lot of independents. You know, there's a lot of disaffected people. There's a lot of people. I think by and large, you know, there are people who just don't care because a lot of people just don't care, and it's irrational for them not to care, but they don't, and you know, whatever. That's life. But a lot of people, I think,
apathy wins.
Yeah. It's just how people are. But a lot of it's also disillusionment. You know, they voted before, they cared before, the government's not doing what it claims to be able to do, and they sort of fall off. And I do think, you know, right now the direction the GOP is taking is psychotic. It's monstrous. It's dangerous. But it's also very loud and very evidently bad to people who aren't ideologically in that camp. I think, because we kind of saw this back in 2020 with the record number of people voting for Biden, I think this might energize people who might otherwise be more independent or moderate leaning, because it's harder to be moderate when, you know, you check on social media and you've got, you know, people Sieg Heiling all over the place. It tends to motivate people. So my hope would be that would make the process of talking to nonpartisan right people a little easier. And hey, even for those partisan right people, not all of them go along with the agenda, you know? There was recently some polling done on whether or not people from various parties would support legislation to ban gender-affirming care for youth. I mean, we're not even talking adults here. We're talking youth. And of them, I think it was something like 30% of Republicans responding would oppose such a ban. That is a surprising amount of incongruity within the party that is otherwise so lockstep. So, I don't know, a little bit of optimism. I'm hoping this motivates some positive change.
Oh yeah, like I think that we're in a period where I think that from what I've seen from the 2022 midterms, it seems like conservatives have overplayed their hand a bit when it comes to things like abortion. That has now opened kind of a Pandora's box that they are unable to really sidestep, and you can
They're
see
the dog that caught the car.
Exactly. Like there's Dan Kelly, for example, has been trying to like downplay his support of anti-abortion policies by just saying, "Oh, I wouldn't ever consider giving an opinion on abortion unless I was ruling on it." And it's like, my man, you're literally endorsed by Wisconsin Right to Life. Like you have a picture on their website.
Yeah, and it's harder to get away with casual hypocrisy when it gets embedded into law. You know, there are lots of Republicans who have done well, abortion's bad, but my daughter's abortion, okay, that was special. That was different. And you know,
Special.
you know what I'm talking about. You can get away with that double standard when it's not illegal to have an abortion. But when your daughter gets pregnant, you think like, "Oh, okay." And then you check your phone or something, it's, "Oh, great, 10 years if we even try. You know, we can't even leave the state for it." All of a sudden, you can't get away with being the, you know, one toe in the pool kind of conservative anymore. Now you're face to face with the consequences of your ideology. And while the average Republican candidate can afford to get it done quietly, the average Republican voter can't. Dog that found the car.
Not only can they not afford to get it done quietly, but if you are politically unaligned, you can't avoid the news stories about it. You know, like it's like every couple of there was a woman who was sexually assaulted and now she's being forced to carry the baby to term, or like even worse, a child sexually assaulted and is now being forced to carry it to term, or here's a woman who has a genetic disease, and like if she gives birth, she will die. She can't get an abortion.
Thus forcing, by the way, GOP like state senators or whatever to go like, well, you know, if God wants a 12-year-old to be pregnant, like because then they have to defend it, and it's like, oh well, thank you for the news clips, dipshit. You know, it's radicalizing, unironically.
I love how Lindsey Graham sold out Mitch McConnell when it comes to all this. Like Lindsey Graham's like, I want abortions for the entire country. And Mitch McConnell's like, what the fuck are you doing, motherfucker? What are you saying right now? No, this is not politically popular. Yeah, what the fuck?
Yeah.
It's like the conservatives, like any conservative I've talked to, is just like, oh yeah, no, they'll definitely put in exceptions for rape and children and things like that. And no, motherfucker, no, they won't. That's part of their platform.
And even if they do, those exceptions are practically worthless because, oh, well, how long will it take for you to figure out whether or not you have a baby? What if you have a faulty pregnancy test? You know, like, well, then you're kind of fucked because guess what? You don't have the time to actually get that done. Or like, hey, if you were raped, well, they're only going to allow you to get that abortion if you can prove that you were raped. Yeah, look at all of those untested rape kits that every state has.
The most generous, like red state abortion laws give you just enough time to call an Uber to Planned Parenthood, only for you to like the time to elapse. You know what I mean? Like it's like 16 weeks or whatever it is, and like the cutoff for a lot of people is it's ridiculous.
Yeah, the moment after you're raped, they hit a chess clock right next to them, and they're like, "All right, go." Yeah.
That's so fucked.
One state is about to shorten it. I forget which one. It was like I think they were shortening it to 6 weeks, but I have to look it up. But in any case, like I think that like I'm going to be honest. I think that the state
Florida.
of affairs is it Florida? Okay, thank you. Yeah. What a surprise. But I think that the state of affairs, right? You know, we should point the finger our direction, and that in the intervening years since Roe, like we have been on the defensive, meaning like the broad left. We've been on the defensive as to keeping what we have rather than advancing it and solidifying it. Right? I mean, why isn't there a federal law saying, you know, guaranteeing the right to abortion? Because we didn't make that push. Now things are the way they are, but elections like this, these matter, right? On the path of correcting this mistake, and it was a mistake on the lefty side, right? Is these tiny elections, these moments in time where you put someone crucial in place. Sometimes it's not always clear who's going to be crucial, but now we do, right? Like now there's a neon sign. This is a crucial election. So we would implore you to actually be involved with this. And it's actually quite simple to do so. Phone banking is super easy. You don't have to leave your house. I hate the sun too, right? You're in good company. And for those of you to brave the outside world where like dogs and bees are, you can also canvass if you can make it to Wisconsin. But you'll be making a difference. And like it may not be obvious immediately, but you're going to be watching some sort of contentious political fight happening, right? And it's going to come down to Wisconsin Supreme Court. It's happened before. So, and then you'll know I made a difference.
Have you all discussed the Wisconsin abortion law that Governor Evers says that he will not enforce, but he's in like legal, like, so Governor Evers, who's a Democrat, and his attorney general, who's also a Democrat, say they will not enforce. It's an 1848 abortion law. Like this thing goes back, like it's insane. It's pre-Civil War, and
was never repealed.
Yeah, never repealed. It was effectively cock-blocked by Roe v. Wade. But now that the Dobbs decision stripped that, it is technically on the books. Now, thank God, we've got a Democratic governor who's like, I'm not enforcing that. But he's in the middle of like legal battles with like district attorneys who do want to enforce that law. And that means it will make its way up to the Wisconsin Supreme Court. So get somebody like Dan Kelly on there who is like the thought of, I'm pretty sure Dan Kelly wakes up every morning invigorated by the thought of forcing women to carry fetuses to term and then denying them like the social safety net to help raise it afterwards. If that man is on the Supreme Court and he keeps that right-wing advantage, that 1846 or 1849 draconian law, it will be enforced.
Yeah,
It's considered Viagra.
well, the 1849 ban makes it a felony for anyone in Wisconsin to provide an abortion, and the only exception is a vaguely worded provision for, let's see, exceptions when a mother's health is at risk, and no one in the state knows what that means. So
and
they're
Republicans
just not doing
notoriously care about the health of mothers.
This is perfect. That part's important. This because if you are on the fence on this issue and you say, well, at the very least, the life of the mother, right? That's the exception. That's the one I care about, right? But actually, in practice, this makes things nearly impossible. Because then a doctor has to prove that this person was going to die, and it's not so easy. There's not like a sign that appears on a woman's head that when she's like near death, right?
Yeah,
and you have situations. Yeah,
it turns out there's not a health bar that appears above a woman's head when giving birth. Yeah.
Remember,
or stamina meter.
Health bars in Dark Souls are only for bosses. For regular mobs, you don't see them.
Yeah. Fair enough. But there is this it's not so clear, right? And so a doctor has to decide against their this person's life or their career and their freedom if it's a felony. So
when you in the U.S. too, right? Like if you have to give birth, isn't it in some states? And if you don't have health insurance, can it be like $10,000, $15,000? It's like you can be bankrupt for life or give birth, your choice.
Yeah,
it's fucked up.
Well, and that's the thing, right? Like any of these exceptions that are added to these abortion bills aren't real, because doctors generally aren't going to be willing to risk a felony conviction, because
effect.
I don't know. Would you be willing to risk a felony conviction when like the ability to prove something is very much not decided?
Yeah,
I think most people wouldn't.
We see this exact same behavior with like the Don't Say Gay law down in Florida, right? Where it like legislative ambiguity and bad lawmaking is actually an effective tool on their side, because technically the wording of the Don't Say Gay bill is incomprehensible and would put everyone on the books for for a conviction, because it'd be like, oh, my husband, or whatever else, like anything, right? Talk about George Washington. Oh, did he have a wife? Jail. It's nonsensical. But obviously, like in reality, the fact that it's nonsensical doesn't mean anything, because the people who will be carrying out these convictions, from the cops to the judges, will be doing so in an ideologically motivated fashion. It's like that. What was the state? Was it Oklahoma, where they say drag performances or any kind of gender performances are now in the category of like adult entertainment?
Oh.
Was that which state was that?
Tennessee?
That
was Wisconsin.
Tennessee.
I think it was Tennessee. And if you actually read the wording of the bill, it's like anything which has gender bending as like a component of comedy, like it would get Doubtfire, like it would get Mrs. Doubtfire, any classic Shakespeare play it would get. But none of those things are going to get charged, obviously, because the point is
depending on the selective enforcement, it could be when a woman wears pants.
Yeah, literally, and that used to be also on the books illegal. Like New York City had the 3 gender incongruent clothing law for getting arrested.
Yeah,
I think it's fair to say that any law that requires or that like depends on Republican largesse, that's probably not a good state to be in. If a law is written in such a way that you're basically at the mercy of Republican interpretation, which is selective on its best day and hypocritical all the time, it's a pretty bad state to be in.
Mm-hmm.
Well, and this
also,
is what
we should say brass tacks about this. If you're worried about the life of the mother, that's, I would say, statistically going to be in a situation in which the person did not want to seek an abortion. Like that's going to happen in the 8th or 9th month, when it's like a tragedy. This is a horrifying thing that takes place, and the mother unfortunately has to choose between whether or not it's the life of her or the child, the hardest decision someone can make. That's what they're most likely talking about. When you set a law up like that, it's not to protect women. Ultimately it's like, oh, we do make rare exceptions. Hey, we're going to be nice. We'll make an exception for rape. Yes, that's how gallant we're going to be in this fucking medieval procedure. Like, it's wild.
Well,
there was a law in South Carolina. Are you all familiar with this? It was proposed by 21 state Republicans that would make women who seek an abortion eligible for the death penalty.
Yep.
21
felony.
state Republican
The
lawmakers.
pro-life
supported it.
party, the pro-life
Yeah.
team.
Yeah.
Well,
Very pro-life.
and to kind
Hell
of
yeah.
bring this back around, like this is part of the ongoing conservative effort to subvert democracy. When you have all of your laws worded in a very vague way, it gives power to whatever official is making those ultimate decisions, right? And then whoever's at the very top has the ultimate say over all those other enforcement mechanisms, right? And so when we have a state like Wisconsin, where the map is gerrymandered to effectively be like a soft, to make it a soft impossibility or improbability of like an overturning of like the majority in the state legislature, for example. And you pair that with vague wording in the legal system, well, that's just empowering the worst people to essentially make life or death decisions. Empowering the party of small government, empowering a cadre of officials to make life or death decisions for citizens.
I thought you were going to say the party of smog just then, like from Lord of the Rings. Sorry.
Well, that too.
That too, yeah, definitely. They all be all for the Balrog. Yeah, I again, like, there's so many people who are watching and listening right now. I know there are a lot of people here, and I know there's a portion of you, right, who have some free time, right? Another thing that I didn't say previously about like phone banking is that like you get to decide your own schedule. You're not like stuck there, right? You can decide when you're free. You know, like oftentimes they make you, maybe sign a list so. When people might be around to do it, but
there's not like a hitman coming around to like break your kneecaps.
Oh, exactly, certainly, yeah. But like, just like in between the time, if you have time when you come home from work or before you're going to bed, right? Like, if you have time in your schedule, they can fit you in so that you can make a difference, right? Even if it's just a half hour. Within that half hour, as Lance was saying before, you can hit a lot of numbers. It's automated for you. So you're not like they're dialing numbers and making sure, oh, did I hit the wrong number and anything? You're not doing that, right? The system does that for you, and you're making a very large impact within a very small amount of time. So if you have a half hour, just give it a try. 30 minutes, give it a try. Try phone banking, right? And if it's not for you, you can walk away at least saying you have the experience, and you can do like the whole stolen valor thing, like, oh, I made the difference in the election, right? You can do that, right? So give it a try. You're not going to lose anything, but 30 minutes of your time, and might have a good experience.
And think about how happy people will be to get a call from a random number that isn't about reaching them about their car's extended warranty. So that already, you're operating at a colossal advantage right then and there.
True, you're
asking them questions. It's nice.
You're clearing a very low bar.
Right.
Yeah.
Like this is. People have been calling this like the biggest election of 2023, and it really is. In a lot of ways, it's a microcosm for the election in 2024. Like, I think like a lot of the mechanisms are kind of at play in Wisconsin are kind of echoed on a national scale, and we need to be able to an extent, treat this like, hey, we're getting ready for an even bigger fight. Treat this as your opportunity to train. You're in the shonen anime now. Okay, you're going up on the mountain. You're punching trees. You're building up the strength in your fists so you can come back and win the ultimate title. Okay, that's how we need to be treating kind of 2023, because in 2024 there's going to be a massive need for people to turn out, to volunteer and get out there.
In which, I don't know if we discussed this when Lance and Vaush were here, but I mean, even just as a reminder to their audiences, in 2020, the guy who is right now running as the conservative candidate, Daniel Kelly, he was involved. He was implicated in a scheme with the Republican Party in Wisconsin to help steal President Biden's electoral votes in Wisconsin by sending fake electors to Washington, D.C., and having then Vice President Pence certify them. He was paid 6 figures to do it, okay? And President Trump at the time attempted to disqualify 221,000 votes to steal Biden's electoral wins. And the only reason that didn't succeed was because one swing conservative judge had an attack of conscience and voted with the 3 liberal justices on the Supreme Court. And that was it. Donald Trump is more than likely going to be the 2024 nominee, unless, again, a miracle happens. Let me retract that. I almost said DeSantis getting the nomination was a miracle. I retract that. Hail Mary there. But
Clip it, chat. Clip it. Go now. Do your thing. You know what to do. Go.
Isn't that
fly to Twitter, my pretties?
Isn't that scary that we're in a situation where even for a second somebody might think that that's a miracle just to avoid Donald Trump? That's terrifying. But the point is, if he tried it in 2020, what the hell's going to stop him from trying in 2024? Is this a man who has learned his lesson? Is this a man who exercises a limiting principle? Would we have any reason to believe that he won't try again? No, we have every reason to believe that he's going to try again. And if a guy who tried to help him steal the election in 2020 is in a position to help him steal the election in 2024, why won't he?
Hell, I firmly believe that he did learn his lesson. He learned that he's not in jail, so he can do more horrid shit to try harder.
As I was saying before, before Lance and Vaush came in, there is our conservative friends understand the importance of the judiciary, right? Like, just like in lefty circles, it's not something that we discuss very often. It's not a big topic of conversation until it's too late, right? Yeah, right. It's not. We don't have judges on like a swimsuit calendar, right? We don't have.
Oh, we should
yet,
but we should. Holy crap!
Who doesn't want to see John Roberts in a Speedo in April for the Supreme Court judge?
I am glad I'm being recorded from the chest up right now. But okay, but our conservative friends, they understand the importance of the Supreme Court, and it's been a decades-long project to alter the judiciary, and under the Trump administration, they did a damn good job doing that. And we're dealing with the consequences now. Again, it's not always clear who is going to be in the right place at the right time to make that correct decision, right? Or at the very least, you trust to have the wisdom to make the correct decision, right? But right now, we have a judge, Judge Janet. And she would be in that key place, right? She would be that swing vote in a place that matters, in a place that could go blue or red, depending on a slim majority in the electorate. So if you want to make a difference there, right, which might matter, like literally might matter for the 2024 election, right? The altering the judicial landscape might be too big for you. Right, deciding the fate of a swing state might be too big for you, but you could help get this one person in place so that if it comes down to it, and it might, we'll have the right person in place to make the right call and might decide the election.
Yeah.
You know what's funny about what you were saying earlier about Donald Trump and Ron DeSantis? I personally think that Ron DeSantis is done because he tried to do the passive aggressive thing. He was trying to be like, I don't really know anything about paying off porn stars, and you don't do that on Trump. Trump is like, you got to go aggressive. It's like the only way to survive. Trump just has to turn around and be like, that guy fucks kids. Like, that's fucking, he's a groomer.
No.
He's a pedophile. Have you seen it? Yeah, he's a fucking groomer, that guy. Look at him. He fucks kids. And what are you going to do then? Like, you got nothing, right? Like, Ted Cruz went the distance because Ted Cruz was like, able to play that game eventually. He finally got to that point where he was like, oh, well, he said bad things about my wife, but otherwise you're not going to survive.
I mean, honestly, I think DeSantis was done as soon as Trump started rolling out Meatball Ron. I don't think Ron DeSantis had. Yeah,
it's
I don't
over.
think
Ron DeSanctimonious versus Meatball Ron.
I think honestly, like Ron DeSantis heard Meatball Ron, it was just like, how do I even respond to this? Like on a stage, how do I do that? And like, And meanwhile, Trump's just out there going like, I would never call him Meatball Ron. I would never do that. Like, it's
Did you all hear the interview that he did with Sean Hannity recently, where he goes on this like 8-minute anecdote about his relationship with Governor DeSantis, and it's standard Trump. Like, he takes every opportunity to insult him. I didn't know Ron very well, but Ron came to me. He was in tears. He was like, Mr. President, I need your endorsement so bad. And I was like, Ron, you kind of backed me, during my first impeachment. And so, but you listen, it's such a long shot. You're so behind in the polls. But he's like constantly talking shit about this guy for like 8 minutes, uninterrupted stream of consciousness, going back and forth on random tangents to take opportunities to blatantly shit talk DeSantis. And yeah, then you contrast that with DeSantis, who I think is trying to straddle this fine line again, where he's avoiding any head-on collision. But to your point, I don't think that works. Trump made mincemeat of people in the 2016 election who appealed to their conservative bona fides. There's no like, you take somebody like Ted Cruz. This dude's litigated in front of the Supreme Court multiple times. He went to Harvard. He's clearly a smart guy. He does a hell of an impression of an idiot, but he is a smart guy. Donald Trump is not very smart. And so when Cruz appeals to, ideology and to his conservative bona fides, it was just simply no match. You have to be a wrecking ball, and he's more of a meatball, like you said. Ron DeSantis is not a wrecking ball; he's a meatball.
Yeah, I think, and I think we should all be thankful for that as well. I'm a MAGA communist. I fully support Donald Trump over Ron DeSantis. No, I mean it unironically, because obviously Donald Trump is terrible. You saw his recent thing in front of the American flag.
I agree. I agree.
Yeah, he's shitting on trans people. You can tell Donald Trump, he does not care about trans people. He doesn't. I doubt he understands much of what's going on. He doesn't follow the points. It seems like somebody just handed him like a script or a set of talking points, and they were like, okay, like, hey, it's not 2016 anymore. It's 2023, and these are the things we talk about. And he just like reiterated the same Trumpisms with those points slotted in. Ron DeSantis ideologically gets off to people suffering. I think man was at Gitmo. He personally is emotionally committed to suffering. Donald Trump doesn't care about people.
He was a torture whisperer.
Yeah.
That was his role. That was his actual role.
Yeah.
He's been identified by former detainees at Guantanamo for like, oh yeah, that's the guy who, while I was being tortured, laughed at me, and then when I couldn't take it anymore, I vomited in his face.
He was supposedly employed, but I think it was an unpaid internship. I think Vaush
he paid to be there. Actually, Donald Trump wouldn't have done any of that. He would have walked into Gitmo, called everyone there poor, and then walked out. He wouldn't. Yeah. He doesn't care. See, Trump. These are facts. Trump cares about applause. He's a narcissist. He's a megalomaniac. But it's entirely like an affirmation game. I think DeSantis would like cohesively and intelligently bring ruin to the fine people of this country. So I'm a MAGA communist. I support Donald Trump in his electoral endeavors, and then I support, let's be realistic here, Biden against him come 2024. All right.
So, so Donald Trump has the endorsement of the biggest Dark Souls streamer on Twitch now.
True.
That's gonna play. He's gonna have that, and his next NFT will be a picture of him and Vaush standing side by side.
God, I wish I'd hang that on my mantle.
I just want to bringing it back to Wisconsin again. It's really hard to emphasize how bad Dan Kelly is when it comes to women's rights in Wisconsin. A lot of Republicans will be like, well, I'm against abortion, but I think there should be exceptions in the case of the life of the mother. Or, I'm against abortions, but I think birth control is good and should be allowed. Dan Kelly, wrote a series of blog posts between 2012 and 2016 where he literally argued that that abortion should just be banned with no exceptions, and that birth control should also be made illegal. He's just full on into the whole look, if you have sex, you deserve to be just a baby maker. That's your role, okay?
And Justice Thomas, Justice Clarence, the birth control thing I didn't know about, but I'm sure you all remember that when in the Dobbs decision, Justice Clarence Thomas was like, hey, maybe now we should revisit, and I can't remember if it was Lawrence or v. Texas or whatever the case is, that guarantees access to birth control. So that's another scary facet about Dan Kelly I didn't know about, that you've basically got a little mini Clarence Thomas here in Wisconsin who's like, hey, maybe birth control shouldn't be an option.
Well, that's always been the long-term goal here, because they don't give a shit about fetuses. They've never cared.
No.
The real reason they care about abortion is because obviously making abortion illegal would kind of artificially force women back into like an earlier era of domestic servitude. Same with birth control, right? It's pretty difficult to do the whole like independent girl boss thing when one sex is all it takes to inter you into 18 years of committed, financial obligation, which you can't afford singly, by the way. Everything's so expensive right now. Like, you got to shack up for that unless you're some kind of, I don't know, venture capitalist in Silicon Valley, and the bank closure, maybe not even that's enough anymore. So yeah, it all comes back, I think, ultimately to like barefoot pregnant trad wives in the kitchen making gelatin pies or something.
Yeah, I mean, it's that mixed with like they want cheap labor. They want more people in the United States that they can exploit.
Yeah. And it's why they hate trans women, because they invented a woman, who doesn't need birth control to not get pregnant.
It's true.
And I can't remember the particulars of the I know before we lost our majority in the House of Representatives federally, I know President Biden signed into law some sort of protection for gay marriage, if I remember correctly, but there were little asterisks along the way with respect to like state laws. I can't remember what it is, but I do know Riverboat Jack, based on those blog posts that Dan Kelly made, he also said that Obergefell v. Hodges, which was the case that legitimized gay marriage, that was illegitimate. Those are his exact words. It was illegitimate and wrongly decided. So I don't want to talk out my ass here, but like, if there are certain concessions made in that bill that Democrats were able to squeak by in it's like November or December.
The Protect Equality Marriage Act or whatever.
Yeah.
Right. So now imagine in a state that it's 3 seats away from getting a Republican supermajority in its state legislature, and then if Dan Kelly wins, it would be a conservative Supreme Court. So imagine a situation where this guy who, like you said, he's anti-trans, he's anti-birth control, anti-abortion, apparently anti-gay marriage. Why again would we assume that there would be any protections for any of those things? Birth control, abortion, gay marriage. A lot of people will, I think, cope and say, well, gay marriage, it's really not in danger. It's a settled issue. And to me, it's like if conservatives on a national level are targeting birth control, which is, I think, even less controversial to people than gay marriage, then they will absolutely seek to undo gay marriage protections if given the opportunity. And we should assume that that'd be the case here in Wisconsin.
Okay, real quick, I'm going to pull in the Humanist Report. Here we go.
Hey.
Hello.
Nice.
Hope we didn't keep you waiting too long.
Hi,
Welcome.
No, not at all. I'm sorry for being late. I am a boomer when it comes to Discord, so the fact that you can hear me is, or at least I assume you can hear me, is good.
Yeah, we can hear you.
Okay, I don't know how to see you all, so I'm gonna work on that real quick.
Okay.
There we go. There we
There
go.
we go. Hey, Mike.
Okay. Nice to see everyone. I'm so sorry. I'm such a boomer.
Good to see you,
No
Mike.
worries.
You're amongst
but-
boomers here. We're all.
Yeah.
I'm in
boomers
good company
here,
then.
Mike.
Okay, good. How we doing, folks?
Doing all right.
We
We're
just
doing
endorsed
great.
Donald Trump in the 2024 election.
We.
Well, thank God.
You were all here
I don't
with
want to be
me.
the only one.
No. I second. I want Donald Trump to beat Ron DeSantis. I think Donald Trump is more beatable than Ron Sanctimonious. So
Oh yeah.
I'd rather have Trump
Yeah.
beat Meatball Ron. Yes.
Also,
I'm team Trump right now.
Mike, why don't you introduce yourself? Where can people find you?
Well, I am Mike from the Humanist Report, and I post videos on YouTube every single day. I host the Leftist Mafia with my buddy Lance here every single Thursday. And yeah, I'm all around. Search the Humanist Report and you'll find me. Probably somebody on the right talking shit, but nonetheless, you will find me if you search for that.
Which one of you is the equivalent
Yeah.
of Don Corleone? If this is like the leftist mafia, like which one of you is Marlon Brando's
Oh.
character?
Oof.
I don't
They're
know.
both
Lance,
being
what do you think?
modest.
It's definitely
They're
not
both
me.
thinking like, yeah, it's me, but
Yes,
they don't
it's
want to.
No,
Yeah.
no, I don't have that personality. I'm like, I don't want it, sir. I do not want to be granting favors and deciding who lives
Okay,
or
well then,
dies.
Mike, I
Okay.
guess it's
Okay,
you.
well then,
Yeah, Mike can take it.
well then, who's waking up next to the horse head?
I'm just trying to remember who was the
Everyone's
rat?
thinking,
Who's the
yeah,
one no
it's
one
me.
wants
I'm waking
to
up
see?
next to the horse head. Yeah.
It's a regular Saturday night for me. Mike, it's nice to meet you. I don't think we've ever talked in person before.
Nice to
but,
meet you too.
Yeah.
Um,
Prime
Mike, I'm
is who
below.
I am. Yeah. I wanted to relate this back since we have a new person here. Do another call to action.
Yeah, let's do it.
To our great audience here who's been sticking with us. We want you, if you have a moment, and I'm sure you do. I'm sure you have a bit of time, right, to get involved in this race. This is the Wisconsin race, and Judge Janet is trying to get on the Wisconsin Supreme Court, and it's a very important decision, election, a very important moment, and it would swing the court. It would give us a fighting chance of unfucking the state in terms of gerrymandering, right? This is one of those few times where you know that your efforts actually add up to something big, right? And it takes a very little effort on your end. Go to progress.win, and it will take you to a form, right? You fill out the form, you get access to the Discord. It gives you all the information to be a part of this. To Canvas, right? If you can get to Wisconsin, that's fantastic because it's super effective. Or you can try phone banking, and it's very easy. You can do it from home. You don't have to use your own phone to do so. But in a very short amount of time, you can contact a whole bunch of voters. Please consider, if you have the time, and just a little bit of time will do, half hour maybe, right? To be involved in this election.
Yeah, it's this is really the opportunity that we have, because this election will determine the electoral maps, essentially, for Wisconsin, which will in turn open all kinds of new doors in Wisconsin or leave them shut for the next 10 years. So this is the one opportunity we get in the foreseeable future. The one shot to, as Prime said, unfuck Wisconsin.
Another I want to promote that Prime has been saying, these elections can be won with very, very slim margins, and you're not playing against people who play fair, okay? We're talking about a party that has George Santos in it. Do you know the things that George Santos has convinced the world of? Do you know what he's gotten away with? It blows my mind. How does a single human being go for this long? And some of them are more absurd than I ever thought humanly possible. And this is real. George, he's a real thing, you know? He's like Santa Claus. And if we believe in him, he's real. And all I'm saying is that they don't play fair. They're pieces of shit. So get out there, phone bank, canvas, knock on doors, phone calls, whatever you got to do, because that's what you're up against.
That guy defrauded the Amish. It's crazy that he's anywhere near the seat of power.
I didn't know about that one. See,
yeah.
case in point.
At this point, it's a shorter list.
He bounced a bunch of checks to the Amish for puppies.
At this point, it's a shorter list of people he did not defraud. So I'm actually about to step out. Before I do, I just want to say, so I was in Milwaukee a couple of weeks ago canvassing. The election is on April 4th. I don't know what Progressive Victory and what Progress Libs is doing in terms of canvassing. I think they're doing it this weekend as well. They're still canvassing. So I would encourage people, if you have the opportunity, if you're local in Wisconsin, or if you're not local, I'm sure that Progressive Victory and Progress Libs can make arrangements for you. It was a lot of fun. Even in the cold, it was a lot of fun. I had no bad interaction. The best interaction I had with a person was a conservative, believe it or not. And it was really good for even introverts as well, people who have told me that they would never have done something like this. Well, they did do it and they had a good time. Prime and Riverboat Jack and Lance, they've all made the case here for why this election is so important. And to quote the great sage philosopher, Marshall Mathers, this is our opportunity. We don't, I couldn't do it with a straight face. I folded. I was gonna quote Eminem.
Oh, that was pure mom spaghetti. I got to tell you.
Yes, exactly. Sorry. So anyway, I'm Josiah. You can find me at Pondering Politics on YouTube, where I bitch about Republicans ad infinitum. And guys, it was really nice talking with you all. Hope you have a great rest of your day.
It was lovely
It was a
having
pleasure.
you. Thank you for giving us so much time.
Very nice.
Absolutely. Bye, everybody.
And also, so the main canvassing day that we're working on is April 2nd, which is this coming Sunday. And you will have an opportunity, if you turn out the canvas, to meet Judge Janet in person, which is always really cool. So anyone who can make it out to Wisconsin for April 2nd, you can meet the candidate and also put in a lot of really good work. We've been talking about how effective canvassing is, and this is your chance to go and do that. Or phone bank. You can do either. Or both.
Yeah.
Why not?
There's and I was saying this before, and I'll say it again, that there's a chance to engage with politics in an active, kinetic fashion, right? Where so oftentimes, I mean, you guys are audiences of Twitch streamers and YouTube essayists, right? You usually like politics is just coming at you from a TV screen. That's the way most of us interact with these things. But this is a chance to actually have a chance to do something active, to get your hands dirty, honestly, right? And while there are other opportunities to do so, like getting involved in like your city council or something like that, right? Like there are other opportunities there, but there are rarely these opportunities in which it's so plainly crucial, right? And it takes like a relatively small effort from your end, even if you aren't from Wisconsin, even if you aren't in the States, as Riverboat Jack was saying previously, right? You can still be involved, right? If you care about American elections for wherever you might be, you can get involved. You can do canvassing. It's not just for people in the States. You can't give money. You can't give money if you're not a U.S. citizen, but you can, at the very least, do phone banking, right?
Mhm.
So progress.win, right? Put that in your browser. Progress.win. It'll send you to a form, fill out the form, and they can get you involved. It's that simple.
Yep.
Yeah, and I just want to point out that like when you talk to people in person, it is very different than the interactions that we have in a YouTube comment section, on Twitter. People aren't as likely to jump down your throat. I mean, I've never done door knocking, but I've canvassed, and the overwhelming majority of people that you talk to are very, very polite. Like you might have some disagreement or pushback here and there, but it's much more difficult to dehumanize someone when you're speaking to them. So they're not as likely to be mean. And so it's a matter of like just doing it, because I understand how intimidating it could be, especially if you're really introverted. Just taking that first step and talking, like as long as you do one, you can do two and then three. It's just a matter of like taking that initiative. And it's really difficult, but you just have to put yourself out there, and it's really not as scary once you do it.
Yeah, and it's I just want to say, it's also one of those knowledge gap things as well. If you watch any of us, I imagine you're committed to educating yourself in political matters, and that's an admirable cause. But it's you can learn about a lot of stuff online. There's some stuff you have to experience, and as Mike was saying, the experience of talking to a person about politics in person, a person you don't know, maybe even a person who disagrees with you on some stuff. Really do think you'll be shocked at people's capacity to default to kindness, even through disagreement. The internet doesn't show that. I mean, you can go, for example, I saw a poll just the other day. So, I mean, big poll, Pew Research, right? All Americans asked people, how important do you think it is to use a trans person's new name and pronouns? Not everyone said it was super important, sure. But you know how many people said that they just wouldn't use their name and pronouns? 11%. Now, if you went and you looked online right now, you might think just
Dicks.
intuitively, it's 50-50. Republicans won't do it. So, okay, you got Republicans, non-Republicans. In reality, real people, are a lot kinder than that. And I think if you can remind yourself of that, you can also dispel from your mind some of the worst elements of far-right propaganda, which are effective not only in moving their people over, but also in making you feel hopeless.
Yeah,
Mhm.
because
11%. That's wild. It's like. No, sorry. Go ahead.
11%.
they benefit from making you hopeless, right? Like every time you go full doomer, every time your friend group goes full doomer, it's less likely that they turn out for election. Every time someone goes full doomer, it's far less likely that not only are they not going to turn out for elections, but they're not going to turn out to volunteer or bank or canvas. They're far less likely to talk about it in their friend groups, and like that kind of attitude can be contagious to a degree.
Mhm.
It's kind of like when you're talking with somebody who's very depressed and very committed to being depressed, and they're just like, no, like it's the political equivalent of it's dampening the enthusiasm for turnout. So it's really important to combat that. And the best way to combat it is by getting out there and actually like moving around and like talking with people, bouncing energetically off of folks, and that just reminds you that all politics is at the end of the day is talking with people, and that is the important heart of all of this that can often get very lost in the conversations we have about it. And Mike, I was going to ask you. We've all been talking about this race for a while. What are your thoughts on Wisconsin?
Well, I care about Wisconsin for sure, but I'll admit I'm very self-interested. So this affects all of us in the country. So even though I'm in Oregon, I feel like I have a really vested interest in this race because, let's say, hypothetically speaking, Trump is the GOP's nominee, probably going to happen. Let's say it doesn't go his way. Well, this whole fake elector scheme that he tried back in 2020, he wasn't successful because there were people in positions of power that didn't let him do the coup. In this instance, one of the individuals in this race, the Republican, he was in favor of fake electors. And so when you're this close, you need somebody who's going to defend democracy. And so it's not just about Wisconsin, in my opinion. It's about protecting American democracy, which is in a very, very vulnerable state currently. And so in any way that you can put people in power that will kind of bolster democracy, I think you have to do that. And this is basically ground zero currently for protecting democracy. Her election here, I think she has like a 10-year term if she were to get elected. That is 10 years that we don't have to worry about this one state swinging in that direction. So, this is really, really important. And I'm glad that so many people are taking the initiative to get involved because this affects all of us. I mean, certainly, again, the people of Wisconsin really care and they should, but I care as well. And all of us should really.
Mm-hmm.
You brought up a fantastic point, Mike, about the institutions, right, that keep democracy up and running. And it's often said America has strong institutions, and that's one of the reasons that it literally hasn't fallen to fascism yet, right? But those institutions are built on people. They're just a collection of individuals, right, given authority, and they can be undermined, and they can be replaced, right? And so, we saw this. Just a thing that pops into my mind is Scott Pruitt, who ended up being Trump's EPA guy, who hated the EPA and did everything he could to undermine that and make it weaker. Right now, we can't do anything about the EPA. That's outside of our power. But this institution, which is important, state elections, state courts are important. Especially when we're talking about larger elections, you have a chance to do something about that. But I just really love that idea because people, I think, just assume these institutions will be there. Right? They've always worked before, so I guess always work in the future. But no, they're just a collection of people. And if you don't have the right person, then that institution will make the wrong decision. It will fail when you need it to succeed.
Yeah, that's such a great point because we have kind of all become accustomed to democracy because it's all that we know, us in America and Canada. But what a lot of people don't realize is that democracies are very, very fragile. And the overwhelming majority of democracies around the globe end up dying in their very early stages. So democracy isn't something that just exists. Like it requires routine maintenance and a buy-in of the population. And when you see people start to doubt democracy and they distrust the institutions, that's when you really have to get involved, because if we just sit idly by and allow democracy to die, it will. And it feels like that's kind of like hyperbolic or some kind of like a far future event, right? But no, it's very, very important that right now people do what they can to protect democracy. You can't take it for granted because, again, democracy is a very fragile thing. And just because it's the only thing that we've known in the United States, it's a flawed system. Of course, we have to improve democracy, but we still have a democracy nonetheless. But just because that's what we've always known doesn't mean that that's going to be the status quo in perpetuity. We have to fight for it. And this is where we do that in this particular race.
Yeah,
And you can defend democracy without pants on and with your fingers covered in Cheeto dust, right? Like that's the opportunity we're giving you. Progress.win. Type it in. Go ahead.
Yeah. This election in particular is just to me, like when we look at the particulars in this race, this seems to be. I don't want to say democracy is dead in Wisconsin because it's not. We still have a fighting chance, but democracy is certainly injured. If you look at the gerrymandering that's in Wisconsin, it's ridiculous. You can we talked about it a bit earlier in the stream, but if the Wisconsin state legislature, if Republicans get 50% of the vote, they get 65% of the seats. If Democrats get 50% of the vote in Wisconsin, they get 35% of the seats. It's ridiculously weighted in Republicans' favor. And so what we're really looking at here when we're looking at this swing judge is whether or not Wisconsin is going to be a functioning democracy, or if it's going to be de facto just not democracy anymore. I don't know exactly what you call it in Wisconsin, but people are not going to have an equal vote and an equal voice in their representative government.
Yeah, don't underestimate how Republicans can turn these states into basically dystopian fascistic hellholes. I mean, look at Florida, where you have Republican lawmakers proposing unconstitutional rules that require journalists who criticize the government to register with some sort of a state agency. Like, these are things that are really scary. Like, it feels like American democracy is kind of like Mr. Magoo, because we keep dodging like all of these holes that we could easily fall in. I mean, the biggest threat last year, and still is a threat arguably, is Moore v. Harper, the Supreme Court case where the justices could say that independent state legislature theory is valid. And if that's the case, it would allow for mass gerrymandering and worse. But based on oral arguments, it seems like some of the Supreme Court justices, even the conservative ones, aren't in favor of that. But that doesn't mean that, like, we dodge that bullet, there's not going to be another one coming at us. Like, it's a constant battle, especially in this age where you have one of two major parties just go explicitly fascist. I mean, how many Republicans could you accurately describe as like straight up fascist? At this point, I'd say it's like 60-70% if I'm being charitable. So there's going to be areas where we're successful and areas where we lose, but it's going to be a constant battle, and it's going to remain this way for at least a decade. And that's if, we keep at this same pace. But the second that we kind of let our foot off the gas, they're going to win. Like, they're going to monopolize or not monopolize, but they're going to capitalize on our ambivalence. So we just can't let them do that. So that's why I want people to take these things very seriously.
Mike, did you hear about Matt Gaetz' new aide? Apparently, his military advisor. Apparently, the guy is a war criminal, who straight up was found guilty of shooting someone in the face while trying to get information from them. Yeah, Ken Klippenstein just did a new article in The Intercept about it. The story goes that he was interrogating someone, and his version of the story is that the person escaped and then tried to grab his weapon and then, made an advance for his men. And then the other people's testimony was like, he was asking him questions and at a certain point pinned him down and shot him in the face, and was found guilty of that and is obviously a fucking monster, but was granted clemency because of right-wing Republicans who basically advocated for him to get like a linear sentence, and now he's Matt Gaetz' military advisor. So
I mean,
the pipeline
it doesn't surprise me, especially remember how after Kyle Rittenhouse was acquitted, there were like Republicans arguing with each other about how no, he's going to be my intern. No, he's going to be my intern. I mean, you don't even have to go back that far, even though that wasn't that far technically. Like, go back a couple of months to the Club Q shooting when Republican propagandists were basically saying that the LGBTQ plus community were asking for it because they were grooming kids. I mean, these people are kind of just admitting everything that they think right now. Like, they're attempting a genocide against trans people. So like, don't underestimate how ruthless they are. They don't care about democracy, and they're actively trying to undermine democracy because that's really the only way that they could impose their theocratic will on all of us. So you've got to fight these people and not take the threat lightly, because it's serious.
Something Greg Abbott wanting an entire list of all the trans people in the state of Texas because, I don't know, reasons. And that's what he said.
Yeah, these are not normal times that we're living in. It's not like the regular Republican Party, on average, is good. Like, the 2000s Republicans were terrible too, but like they kind of go back and forth. They oscillate between just terrible neocons who are bigots to outright fascists. And we're in the fascist phase right now, and we've got to defeat that.
Oh yeah, like the Tennessee GOP have been pushing a bill currently through their legislature to get drag queens to register as adult entertainers with the state. And weirdly enough, the drag queen provision is written so broadly that it just happens to apply to a lot of trans people. It's just so vague. We were talking about vaguely worded law earlier that serves kind of fascistic ends, and yeah, they're just they're weirdly trying to get registries of trans people.
Yeah, something about male and female impersonators, and then does not go on to define what the hell that means.
Yep.
Yeah, as you said, being vague is the point. And when you take into consideration like these registries that they want to create, with the fact that they want to disarm trans people, I think Vaush had a great tweet about this. I think I retweeted it because it's like, this is a warning sign. Like, we've seen so many warning signs right now that this moment is very, very dangerous. So people need to wake up because it's looking really bad right now.
Yeah, I think it's worth identifying the different systems of persecutions that Republicans have engaged in historically. So obviously Republicans have reified a lot of white supremacist institutions in this country, but the way in which they've done so and the way in which they've treated black people have always been, I would say, fairly implicit. Republican messaging doesn't lean towards explicit racism. It usually leans towards the assumption that we already live within a meritocracy, and therefore any differences in performance between black and white people must be due to some kind of cultural difference. But this doesn't usually manifest in a kind of like broad, sweeping, categorical denunciation of black people. It usually has to be euphemized. They'll either say like thugs or whatever if it's Fox News, or they'll talk about Black Lives Matter. But even then, when they did that, they focused a lot on white Antifa guys. So there's always been a layer of abstraction when it comes to the way in which they promote racism, at least for the past, I'd say, like 40 or so years, but not with trans people. Really open, really overt, really explicit, really, very direct. And we have to recognize two patterns, right? One of which is, this is a new kind of, I don't want to say new kind of bigotry, but at least in terms of the modern GOP, this is definitely a distinct, recognizably different way of pursuing like an anti-minority group set of behaviors. And two, they show no signs of slowing down. Everything they've done has been escalate, all the way from 2016, 17, 18, 19. It's only gone up. So I don't think there's any reason to look at what they're doing right now, which is like trying to form lists, trying to criminalize. There was a bill recently, like charging trans people the felony if they use a public restroom. Against the assigned sex or whatever, which again doesn't happen to cis people. If you're a cis guy and you can like bumble into a woman's restroom, go blah, blah, walk out, and that, police don't show up for that. This is obviously a very specific level of cultural and legal denunciation, and they're pretty clearly going after trans people's Second Amendment rights here. Okay, I feel like if you really do believe from them every accusation is a confession, is something revealing, I feel like the writing's on the wall. There's no reason to think they're going to slow this down. So the highest level of caution has to be applied when it comes to like our assumptions on where this is going. Anybody who made like any underestimation of how far this would have gone over the past 8 years has been wrong. It keeps getting worse.
Yeah,
Also-
as a trans person, I'd just say, fellow trans people, please get your papers, get your passport, and then whatever you need to do to be safe, make sure you have those things on hand, whether it's pepper spray, knives, whatever, or more than that.
I don't have my birth certificate changed, but you can bet your ass I have my passport.
Yep.
Yeah.
And I'd like to disagree on one small point in it not affecting cis people. It totally affects gender non-conforming cis women, but
Oh yeah.
the
for sure,
Republicans in power don't give a shit. If you're not performing femininity as a woman or performing masculinity as a man to a level that they find acceptable, then you get punished for it. Because they absolutely, it goes back to what I was saying earlier, you cannot be a human being and not have your actions tainted by your ideology, influenced or motivated by ideology. And their ideology is to actively harm us.
It really goes back to the dog chasing the car, because eventually you're going to get more and more stories of like 53-year-old suburban white women who vote red getting the police called on them for entering the women's restrooms because they don't look like like a Dove model. And you're just going to hear that because, like, again, we can always tell people cannot, in fact, always tell. So we're going a natural consequence.
All the video footage I have seen so far, people freaking out in restrooms, have been Karens basically wanting to kick in doors because they think that, like, this is a trans woman. It's like, oh, I can see your penis. And it's like, why are you filming inside of a bathroom stall? You're the one who's causing a problem right now. What is going on here?
But Vaush, what I'll disagree with you ever so slightly there, is that this will fall more on African Americans, right? This will fall more on minorities. Like Black women, their femininity has been questioned by like American society for a very, very long time, and we've seen this in terms of like sports, right? Like God, I wish I had that case in front of me, but there was like a young girl playing in some sports, and she was challenged, right? Because we have those laws now, we can challenge like the gender identity or sexual identity of a child, right? And challenge to say this person is not actually a woman or a girl in this case. And that happens to African Americans, right? We're told that we are somehow suspicious in one way or other. And this is just another way that can otherize us, even if we are indeed cis.
Well, so to build on that real quick, that's absolutely true, but also keep in mind that these laws are vaguely worded and also going to be selectively enforced, like we were talking about earlier. So, like, I don't think it's going to happen all that often that like a white Karen is going to be arrested by the cops and charged with this, because frankly, it's going to be used selectively to discriminate against the enemies of the GOP.
If they
Like,
if they can tell, but
Yes.
they at the point of calling, they might not be able to. Well, I mean,
Right.
they can't. We see it. They can always tell people. Obviously, this will be used selectively against trans people. I'm not saying it's like a leopard face eating party kind of dealio. I only mean like these laws, their implementation is so obviously, to say the very least, inconvenient to everybody. And I do think, I hope it's like with the abortion thing. You can preach and preach and preach, but when you actually have to put the laws to the books, it turns out a lot of this shit is absolutely insane and will make people unhappy. And I do think that'll contribute significantly to getting independence a little bit, little more engaged and they see the
Yeah.
consequences of not participating in the system.
100%. I mean, look
chastity
at
belts was going to be popular.
look at mother of two, married First Lady Michelle Obama, and how many times she got accused of being trans weekly. Do you know how many times I've been accused in public of being trans? I'll give you a hint. It starts with 0, and it ends with 0. It's 0. It's 0, Vaush. Yeah. And that's
It'll
it.
be 0, 1, 0, 0. Could that be it?
No, not
zero,
binary,
1
just
million.
0.
Yeah.
I've never been
Just
harassed
0,
in
okay.
public. And I have been around when other people who look less femme than I am have been harassed in public for being when they're not.
I mean,
Yeah,
from what I'm seeing from like the online standard of accusing people of being trans, it seems to be like wearing anything that's pastel and not looking exactly like Kim Kardashian. Except even then, it doesn't even seem to like there's like no standard or cohesion there, which means that
they've clocked J.K. Rowling before. What does that tell you? You know,
They've clocked
Yeah.
Jamie Lee Curtis and Sigourney
Yeah.
Weaver before.
right?
Yeah, people,
Emma Watson.
people who have just like a lot of plastic surgery, they've done that too, right? But
Hey,
okay.
they're really good at identifying a certain subsection of trans people, though, and it's the trans people who have trans flags in their bios. Okay, it's those of us who actually
Detectives
just
on the
publicly
case.
identify ourselves as trans are the ones who they can always tell. It's
They've
weird.
clocked me. They've gotten me.
Oh, same here.
But like, yeah, like all of this is at stake in Wisconsin. Like we're talking about all these broad issues, but like all of these issues are reflected in this one Wisconsin race. And I before Mike came, like I was talking a little bit about how this is practice. This is our training for 2024. This is where we can apply ourselves and learn and grow together as like all of our communities together can get something out of this, and then we can apply it in the battles to come. You know, it's this is our chance, this is our opportunity, and we need to make the most.
And to do that, I'm going to do it again. Progress.win. Put that in your URL. That takes you to the form. It's actually very easy, right? They got like a pipeline to get you started. Part of it will be joining the Discord that we just happen to be in right now. The stream that you're looking at. There's a community. I don't think we've talked about that. At least not when I was here. There's like a community of people within this Discord that you can just talk to, just hang out and chill. But also that you can ask for information. Right? If you're a little confused about how all this works, well, there's a community here who wants you to succeed. Remember, within the context of a campaign, like your time is valuable. We only have so much time until the election. Election is very close. There's only so many doors you can knock on if you happen to be canvassing. There's only so many calls that can be made, even if it's automated. So they're trying to get you to be as effective as possible. Part of that is making sure that the people you're interacting with are the right people and that like they're democratic leaning. Also, the other part is that like you understand like what you're doing, that you feel comfortable with it, right? That you're not just like fumbling around and nervous and everything. Like, so if you think that when you're doing this, you're not going to have the information necessary, that you're kind of going into this blind, you're wrong. The information is right here within the Progressive Victory Discord space, right? So just go to progress.win, fill out that form, you'll get access. We'd love to see you here.
Yeah, and if you have, if any of you find streamers and YouTubers have bots set up in your chat, you can use !canvas to get a link for the canvassing effort specifically, and you can use !phone bank for the phone banking effort specifically. But you can access both of those through progress.win. So you can, however you want to do it, okay? This is America. It's freedom, or something like that. You know, whatever.
Yeah. I mean, does anyone else here know of you guys? We're all in this space where we talk about politics, right? But like, I'm sure you've gotten complaints that like the things that you do are pointless, right? Has anyone heard that?
Yeah, of course.
Yeah. and that like you aren't actually making a change. Well, okay, we're giving you this opportunity, right? And it's a really simple one to take. Just a few minutes of your time, and I'm sure you have between now and the election. I'm sure you'll have a half hour to assist. So consider assisting, right, and actually making that difference.
Yeah.
No, absolutely. You're totally right. Here's the thing. If you're getting disillusioned on politics, if you're disillusioned with the democratic system, guess what? It's not the be all end all, okay? This is like one little moment and you help out, you canvass, you do some phone calling, but guess what? If you all want to contribute in other ways, you can. You can do direct action. You can join an organization like Food Not Bombs. You can try to join an LGBTQ plus org in your area. And guess what? You'll make a lot of friends. You'll have a wonderful time. You'll meet people. You'll make a difference. Donate blood. Tell someone you love them. Hug a dog. Hug a puppy. Whatever it is, find your center, but do it and get it participating. You'll feel a million times better afterwards. I promise you. It's real. You don't even have to do it to help anyone out. Do it for selfish reasons. You'll feel wonderful.
You know what? You got social media. You can do that too. You can talk about things that are important to you. Get other people involved. Tell them about things like this. Tell them about the importance of politics. You know, some of the people here, like myself, like Jack, like probably all of us in at least some ways, we don't get to sit out of politics because our existence is on the chopping block. It's not just rhetorical. Real people are involved in these decisions.
And if you value having no kings, no masters, then you need to get out there and protect the one system that keeps those kings and masters from seizing power.
The racist GOP will place tariffs on our Dark Souls, a Japanese game. We have to fight to keep reasonable import prices for our Dark Souls games.
I really feel like
Canada.
Quote, I should have worn my shirt that says "No gods, no masters, only Ferb."
How about we go around with some closing thoughts, because we're getting close to 9. I'm feeling like this is a good point to stop, unless people would like to continue
wonderful.
the combo.
I have to take my dog out. I was going to quickly say, America, don't become like us. Don't become like Canada. My head of state is the goddamn King of England. Yeah, the King of England is my head of state. But you beat the fucking British. That's right. You kicked the British's ass. You fucking floored them. That should be a point of honor for every single one of you. So don't let democracy fall. Don't fall again to the British. Don't let the king come over, all right? That family of pedos and colonizers. Fuck them. No, you are better than that, America. You can do this. Get out there in democracy.
Hell yes.
That was awesome.
It was really fucking weird seeing an official Canadian legal document referencing like the King of England.
It's true, right?
It's so weird.
It's weird. It's really weird.
The first time I went to Canada, I drove into Toronto and I stopped the night before, like an hour and a half out, and I turned on the TV at the hotel, and the first thing is about some like retrospective on Queen Elizabeth. This was back in 2016. I'm just like, man, they really fucking adore the Queen here, don't they?
Oh, they love her. Love her. She's on our money. Yeah, she's everywhere.
I saw your plastic money.
Our plastic money. But our money is also gay as fuck, which is also awesome. I say that as someone
True.
in the rainbow. It's pretty dope.
I guess. Okay, no. If we're going to doing closing statements, I'll try to give one here. I think that it is worth it to put effort out to create infrastructure, right? And in this case, political infrastructure. I think our side has not done enough, meaning the broad left side, right? Has not done enough there. Our eyes are focused on national elections, specifically the presidency, right? And you look at a person like Obama, right? Who comes in, who gives great speeches, and you're like, well, this guy is going to save me. That guy's not going to save you. He didn't save you, right? Biden is not going to save you. Bernie, if you are of that persuasion, is not going to save you, right? Even if you put Bernie within the oh God!
I'm joking.
No, it's fine. Yeah,
sorry.
No, but like, yeah, if you put him within the presidency, right? He cannot get things done without an infrastructure backing him. This comes in a lot of different ways, right? This comes within our federal legislator, that we call that Congress. It comes in the party, like the Democratic Party infrastructure. It comes within the state and local party infrastructure, right? The people to help him out, right? To get things done. Not even if you pass a law, like, is that even going to be implemented, right? We saw this with Obamacare and the Medicare expansion, where it's just like not implemented, right? People have, and states have an option to implement them, and lots of states just aren't implementing those things. It's a matter of infrastructure building. And this is a time that we're putting in a keystone, if I'm going for an architecture motif here. Like a keystone here would be this person going to the Wisconsin Supreme Court. Wisconsin, a very purplish state, right? A state where a few thousand votes, where it matters. And someone's going to rule on those votes. Which votes are valid, right? How are we going to have a recount if it comes down to that? Like, that happens here. And you have an opportunity to help with that infrastructure. So I would implore you, dear audience members, to consider taking just a bit of your time to help build that infrastructure. And Judge Janet would be part of that for us.
Here, here.
Okay. Oh, was that good? All right. Well,
That was great. That was
my
great.
name's Todd Kai. You can find me on YouTube. I guess I did it.
You did it.
Anyone else? Closing thoughts?
Yeah, I'd be happy to. Look, whether or not you think the electoral system is capable of meaningfully moving this country in a positive direction, and I think it is, not at a speed I'm happy with, but still, it's a speed, and a speed is better than no speed. There's something undeniable, and that is that the presence of Democrats in positions of power keeps Republicans from being in those positions of power. There are two directions the Republicans are capable of enacting their bad agenda. It is either legislatively or extra-legislatively. Legislatively would be the easiest for them if they were able to get that power. So I don't think they should. The majority of the people in this country do not agree with Republicans on a great many essential cultural issues, which is why I think that if they are denied the ability to achieve victory in an electoral fashion, if they are denied the ability to, through legalism, move this country in a bad direction, I think they're going to turn further towards extremism, to rely on a highly radicalized minority of this country to either attempt to deliberately seize power or just make a mess of things the whole way through. This would obviously be very bad, but it would be a lot better than them just legally owning the country anyway. I think that there's a lot of hard times, ahead. I think there's a lot for us to deal with, but I think an essential first step towards any kind of survival through those times is to make sure they don't ever get that institutional power.
Agreed.
Mike?
Yeah, so what I'll just say is going back to this idea of like not succumbing to doomerism, it's really easy to do that if you isolate yourself. And, that's increasingly easy to become isolated, especially, during the COVID era. But talking to people really does wonders. Like just getting out there and talking to like-minded people is genuinely good for your mental health. Like I speak from experience, somebody who I'm not necessarily introverted, but I kind of put myself in a little bit of a bubble and don't talk as much. But when I get out and talk to people, it really makes me feel better. Like even just like before the pandemic, I went to a town hall with my representative, and I just spent like an extra half an hour, 45 minutes just talking to people afterwards, because it feels good to kind of like recognize that what you see usually online, like Republicans and all this negativity, that isn't representative of the entire world. There are other people out there who are good people, who agree with you, who are willing to listen, and who appreciate you listening to them. Like just putting yourself out there and talking to other people, it really is something that is great. And I need to do it myself more often, but it makes you feel good, and it's just a matter of like taking that first step. So I just want to encourage people to do that. Like if it's hard to like give yourself the kick in the butt to do it, but just like force yourself. And it's a great opportunity to meet people, like phone banking, canvassing, especially canvassing. But like when you go out there and you talk to people, it will make you feel good. I promise you. You're going to envision these disaster scenarios. You'll catastrophize. Oh, I talked to this Karen and she screamed at me to get off of her porch. There's a very, very small percentage that's going to happen. So, just put yourself out there and you will be rewarded for it. I promise you.
Yeah, and on that point, like if you're used to like engaging in politics on like Twitch or YouTube, right, in this politics space where it's very confrontational, like I have good news for you. Most people are better than us, right? Like most people aren't debate bro degenerates, and they're kind and they like are interested in what you have to say, right? Like if they happen to have the time, they open the door for you in case you're canvassing. The people really do want to engage. And even if they disagree, right, as someone else who was here previously said, if they disagree, oftentimes they'll do so respectfully. This is not Twitter, right? In what you're engaging in. Luckily, right, it's real life, and most people are actually pretty decent. So give it a try if you have the opportunity.
Yeah, let me just put this out there. I canvassed for LGBTQ plus rights back in like 2009, 2010. And things were starting to change then, but it was still a lot different. And like I recall like this lady who just as soon as I was like waiting on a corner and she approached me, but I made the initiative to talk to her. We ended up having like a 15-minute conversation and she was just like so excited. It was like word vomit. Like, "Oh my God, my son's gay. I agree. I really appreciate what you're doing." And like there are other people who are really wanting that same thing, that conversation, that affirmation that they're not crazy in times that kind of makes you feel crazy. Like I feel like I have brain rot to the highest extent, and seeing other people and talking to other people, it really does help. So yeah.
Well, and there's a certain amount of momentum to it too, where like you're once you start, it gets a lot easier to keep doing it. Now you know what to expect. You know kind of what the parameters are. It's familiar territory. And like it gets much easier to do it next time around when there's another election you need to get involved. And then you can be the bridge.
I have to dip out. Sorry, I have to go pick up my dog from the dog place.
Okay.
I love you all. I love you all.
Thanks for coming.
Amazing work. You're the best. Everyone's awesome. You're all amazing, beautiful, and lovely. I'll see you all soon.
Bye. Willow, you got any closing thoughts? Willow? Got any closing thoughts?
Oh, sorry, I didn't hear. Sorry. Yeah, no, just as I was musing over how it kind of came full circle because Lance said sorry. But yeah, no, just sometimes you just got to get out there and do the thing. And remember, if nothing else, that the consequences of this will affect real people. It may seem rhetorical. It may seem like, oh, well, it doesn't really affect me, so I can let somebody else take the reins. That doesn't always work. Some races, even so far, even as recently as 2017, have been decided by a single vote. And real people, I mean, I'm just not going to hold back. If Dan Kelly gets elected, real people are going to suffer. A lot of people are going to suffer because of it. The party of Republicans currently is about power for power's sake and greed, and people are going to suffer. So do something about it. They can't win. Fuck them.
True. Thank you all so much for being here. This has been a really wonderful event. And I'm really hopeful. And folks, remember progress.win to sign up to volunteer. Just type that into your URL, your bar up top, whatever browser you use. Or if you are in a chat that has the bots, use ! Canvas, ! Phone bank, get involved. You can do it today. And I just want to
make Sam was here. I want to make sure that if he has something to say before we close it up.
Sure. Yeah, I just I've been watching and enjoying it. This is Sam. For those of you who didn't get to see me at the beginning, I'm a project director with Progressive Victory, which is one of the groups that's organizing this canvas and phone bank for Wisconsin Supreme Court race. And I really want to thank all the streamers who joined. It's been a lot of fun to watch, very entertaining, and also really serious stuff. And it's really validating that so many of you are taking time on your evening to publicize this, because it's not one of those races that rises to the top of everybody's consciousness, but it's one of those that is going to have a really outsized impact, and it's actually going to like shape the playing field that we're playing with in the future elections. So it means a lot, and I'm really excited to see what we can do this weekend. Thanks.
May I actually say one more thing?
Go for it.
So to kind of tack on to the end of my doom and gloom, everyone wants us to suffer thing, is that, you know, there's an old adage that many hands make light work, and everything that you do, even if it's a little bit of phone banking, a little bit of donation, if you're in the U.S., not because of U.S. election laws, anything is a positive step forward. And a positive step forward, no matter how small, is still a positive step forward. That's all. Thank you.
And we can. I'll just add, we can fucking do it. Okay, like we can do it. We have literally hundreds of people watching. If even like half of you, if even a quarter of you got out to actually volunteer and do canvassing or phone banking, that's literally thousands of people that we would be capable of reaching. And those are numbers that can objectively and mathematically change the course of the election in Wisconsin. So don't go telling yourself you don't matter, that you don't have any power, that you can't do this, because you can. All you need to do is put yourself out there, and we all together can do it. So that is that.
Well, this first day of hearing about this politics thing has been pretty informative, I have to say. This canvassing stuff, you know, I'll continue to promote it to my audience when appropriate. Thank you all very much, really. It's been a pleasure to speak to you all.
Agreed.
The Adderall shortage has been kicking my ass, so I'm going to go turn TTS on and fall asleep in my computer chair.
Okay.
Have a good day.
I hope you all
See ya.
have
Good
a
to see you,
wonderful
bud.
day. I look forward to continuing to hear about the goings-ons, and I really hope we win this.
Agreed. Thanks for joining us, Vaush.
Have a wonderful night.
You as well.